Hey, welcome back to Southern Shooters. This is episode 8. We are here with Casey from West Farm Whitetails. He's currently sitting at, I think, 1,000 followers on TikTok and doing.
Just
You, yeah, and you've got the same handle for your YouTube, correct? West Farm
yes,
Whitetails.
yes. So the YouTube is just kind of I made that thinking that's where I was going to start with content and doing long form. And I quickly
Hmm.
realized I didn't have the patience for editing and the time it takes to record what YouTube needs. So I switched to TikTok and we've been working on growing that. We're currently 30-ish followers away from 1,000. And at 1,000, we're actually doing a small giveaway, which I'll talk about a little bit later. I want to let you get through your introduction, but that's kind of
Yeah.
where you'll find me.
Yeah, I was gonna give that out. Yeah, they I saw the giveaway and man, I'm impressed. The TikTok page, man, is just good, wholesome content, man. And that's what kind of brought me to you was, I'd seen it kind of pop up on my feed and I'd kind of gone into it, and I think that's what really dictates kind of who I kind of want to bring on and talk about, because I think there is a gap between the general public and the hunting community and the outdoors community as a whole. So when I do see wholesome content, that's not like clickbait or people doing things that I don't really try to align with, man, I'm telling you, it's great to see.
Yeah, I've always just, to be honest with you, I never really planned on growing on social media. I just kind of did the TikTok thing. It's like, well, if I'm gonna be recording some of these things, why not just post them and see what happens? And so far, it's done wildly more than I thought it ever would. Just me screwing around, being me. To be honest, and
Yeah.
it's worked out.
Yeah, I mean, but it's the authenticity that I think that brings people back, and I think it brings them to continue to keep going, because you can watch these massive YouTube channels that, they take, you know, so many hours to edit, and make it look really, really fancy. But I almost sometimes prefer watching the authentic, the tried and true, I talked about it last night on an episode. There's sometimes that I would rather watch 5 or 6 YouTube videos of a guy going out and showing the entirety of a hunt, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, whether he comes home with a deer or not, or whether he's successful in, on the pond with ducks or not. It doesn't matter. It's he wants to show you all of those, even those emotions and that come with it. And I think that is such an amazing thing to see sometimes.
Yeah, so I've always anything in life, I've always done the you're going to get what you see out of me. What I tell you is what I think. Yeah, I don't have a filter, and I'm just me, and that's what you're going to get. I've never tried to be, well, on camera I'm going to be this person, but otherwise I'm this person. That's just not me, and that's kind of how I've always been. It's how I always will be, and it's kind of translating into my videos, and that's kind of if folks watch some of my TikToks, where he really just, was blunt about that sometimes. But that's just me. I'm gonna tell you how it is, and we'll leave it at that. And that's led to some things that have caused issues in the past, but it's also solved a lot of things. Different people take it different
Yeah.
ways. But like you said, authenticity with me is key. If you tell me you're gonna do something, do it, and we're good. Your word's gold.
Yeah, and I think that's such a a unique feature and skill to have in the creator life, that that sometimes gets misconstrued, or some people just lose it over time, as popularity comes, and as as more subscribers happen and followers come through and the likes come through. You do tend to, a lot of people end up changing a little bit just to see if that helps get likes, and it tends to, but I think the guys who are staying consistent, I think, it may be a little bit of a longer road, but I think it ends up paying out. But and that kind of leads me into, one of the first questions, that I have is, where did West Farm Whitetails get started? Like, what was the movement that sparked it?
So growing up, my dad was a big time coon hunter here in North Carolina. That's all he did. Like he farmed and he coon hunted. That's the entire world that West Farms was. They farmed tobacco, and then at night we coon hunted when season was in. So I started out in the small game world, and my dad got me hooked on outdoors. Like since I was old enough to walk, I've been in the woods. And then he was never really a big deer hunter when I was growing up. He would do it with me some because I showed interest in it, but he was always small
Mhm.
game, raccoon, squirrel, and kind of as I got into high school and college, we I grew up rather poor, so college and education was my main goal. So the outdoors kind of fell to the wayward. And once I got through that college phase, got my degree, and started having a little bit more free time, I started to get back into the woods and realizing, hey, you know, things have changed over the years. Hunting is not as viable as it was. The land's gone, timber's gone. What can I do to stay outdoors? Deer hunting come up, and I kind of got back into it a little bit. Well, fast forward to about 2019, 2020, COVID happened, and I actually met my best friend online, and he showed interest in wanting to hunt. Well, he lives in Ohio, in Toledo, so he has nowhere really to hunt. I said, well, I tell you what, you pay to come down here and stay, I'll put you on deer. And that
Mhm.
kind of sparked the whole West Farms Whitetails thing. I introduced him to hunting. He got super into it, which in turn flipped the switch in me to get more serious about it. And over the last
Yeah.
5 years, we've just grown and grown. Uh, Personally, in our friendship relationship and with the deer stuff. I mean, as a matter of fact, he's helped me some, and my dad's helped me a lot build what we're calling the HQ building, so to say, which is going to be a shop with an attached like bunk room, and
Yeah.
we're calling it the deer camp movement, inviting folks out to hunt and just going back to what deer hunting used to be, in my opinion, where it's more about the camaraderie and hanging out and having fun. I don't care to shoot a
Yeah.
booner. Would I love to shoot a booner? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, I'd get just as excited over a spike or a little small doe as I do a 150-inch deer. So that's kind of how the movement got started. Is once I started introducing them, it was one of those things. Well, I got them started now. I got to get better to get them better, and
Yeah.
that's kind of where the TikTok come in too. Is he's like, man, you're getting good at this. Why don't you put some stuff out and see how it does? And I was like, I don't know. I don't. It's not me. But it ended up, I kept myself, my personality, and so far we're doing pretty good.
I mean, I like I said, when scrolling through and just seeing it, I was just thoroughly impressed, and it immediately drove me to wanting to get you on and get you start picking your brain a little bit. But I think that's the other big thing, and I kind of want to revert back to one of the things you said is I want hunting to go back to the camaraderie, right? That's such an important thing. I can't tell you how many hunting camps I've been to that I remember the hunting camp more than I do the actual hunt, even though I was successful in the hunt. I remember, going to the hunting camp after a hunt and, starting a bonfire and hanging out with old men and, listen to the stories that they had to share and, just the banter that they were going between each other and, the early mornings. Like some of those were more memorable to me than the actual hunt itself. And I wish that I could have at the time recorded those because getting to watch those back would have been a real blast from the past to help help get through those dark days because that is what gets me going to the next year is that camaraderie.
So, absolutely. Um, Matter of fact, I don't know if you saw it or not, but not too long ago, I hosted what I called a Creator Hunt Weekend. I
Yeah.
found two other gentlemen here in North Carolina that kind of aligned with the ideals I have and stuff, and brought them up. And we got harvested one doe. I think we only did one doe that weekend between five of us hunting, but we had such a blast. And I can tell you more about the shenanigans we got up to than anything about the hunts. And
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
over the years that's been my favorite part about it. Um, it's just meeting these people, sharing a common interest, and being serious about it and having fun.
Yeah. I think that's such an amazing thing, to bring that back because, like I said, this modern world of hunting is it's not that way anymore, man. I remember I could stop at a gas station and see some old timer and some camo, knowing that he's getting ready to go out and smoke some monster because he just knows where they're at, and he's done it for so long that it's become, second nature to him. And I remember, being able to ask him, questions and pick his brain a little bit, and just I like I remember thinking there was many times I was watching these old men. I'm like, man, if you could just share a breadcrumb of what you've probably
Mhm.
forgotten more about hunting than I'll ever know. And so I started asking those questions. And nowadays, I think it has become a little too competitive, where people are just they're not willing to help their fellow guy, help their fellow hunter. And I do wish we can get back to the roots where it's fun, man, and getting to just to be outside, touch grass, man, is a special thing. And we're gonna get into it a little bit here later, but it's something that if we don't take care of now, we're not gonna have in the next 20 years, and that's something that we need to continue, and we need to continue to fight for. And I think the content creating, if it's done the correct way, is going to be massively helpful. But I don't think it is right now. I don't think it's being done the right way, and that hurts.
Yeah, we can get in that soapbox now or later, but I will go ahead and just say this while it's on my tongue because I'm gonna say it anyway, and if it hurts feelings, I'm sorry. But hunting has become too much about the antler and the money and the publicity, and it's not what it
Yeah,
should be. Back to we talking about the good old days. I remember when I was little, the country store that was down the street had a wood stove, sold biscuits in the morning, and when somebody pulled up with
yeah,
a doe or a spike buck, you were just as excited for them as whatever you could if you'd have shot it. But now, my most hated, and I use that word for a reason. My most hated comment. Do you think that deer could have used another year?
yeah,
It's my tag,
yeah,
my fun, my everything. What does it matter? But
yeah,
you know, if I get wanting to shoot big mature deer, I get it, and some people do it. But at the end of the day, I'm looking for meat and fun. So if a doe feels that tag or a spike buck feels that tag, so be it.
yeah. And like I said, we're gonna 100% get into it, because this is the controversy that I think with these conversations that we have, it's going to make a difference if we can, continue to have these conversations. Unfortunately, nothing's going to change if we're afraid to talk about it. And unfortunately, the fear only grows if you're afraid to talk about it. So, but I want to go back, specifically with the West Farm Whitetails. Was there a specific hunt or experience that you had that inspired you to share your journey with the public? You're now out here filming and everything. Was there a specific thing, or was it just kind of like, hey, I want people to get into this?
Uh, I don't think there was ever a specific thing. I think it was just one of those uh, gradual progressions. I went from sharing it with what I know with locals to getting my best friend Austin into hunting, and then kind of just I'm on TikTok all the time. Why not post some TikToks? So it's one of those kind of things. It was just like a gradual progression into. I don't think there's ever a specific moment that really triggered it. Um,
Right.
that's just the honest truth about it. It was never again, like I said earlier, I never really planned for it to go anywhere. It was just one of those things. I'm on TikTok. I'm just going to post a few things to see what happens, and
Right.
it's just kept rolling from there.
Now, and I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, with when you said you'd come back from college, you'd gotten education, and you realized the timber was gone. That the small game hunting really wasn't as productive as it could have been. But how did hunting become more than just a hobby? How did it become a lifestyle and even a mission for you?
It it really coming back from college. Like I said, through high school and college, my main focus was education. Like my grades got
Mhm.
me through college, so that was my main focus. And when I come out, I went to work, and then I started realizing, hey, I have time to do stuff. What do I want to do? And I started into the hunting world, and it just grabbed me again because it brought back all those old memories of small game hunting and stuff. And it was like, okay, this is something that I'm going to stick with. I want to do for the rest of my life, and I don't need to let it go to the wayside. like it has before. So I think that kind of made it. Once I realized, hey, I really do love this. This is part of my identity. I kind of made it into that. Okay, I'm going to make time for this. This is my mission to make sure that I do have time to hunt. I have resources to hunt. I have places to hunt. So that
Right.
just gradual getting back into it, flip that switch of this is something I don't want to go away or lose again. So it just drove home the focus to get back into it and focus on it. And I got my dad back outside some too. He's always farmed and stuff. He has his health issues, and just seeing him actually be excited to be back in the woods for once, it really made it a mission. Hey, I'm gonna keep doing this just to give him something to enjoy as well, because he can't eat them, he doesn't hunt them, but he loves being out here with me when I'm sitting in camp skinning one, or I got the buddies over talking. So between not wanting to lose it and seeing what it meant to him for me to enjoy something that was a big part of his life, it kind of really made it stick and stay.
Yeah, and I think that's, I think everybody has a different opinion of like what brought us to it and what's kept us into it. But I think the people who have started hunting from a very early age, and I use this time frame kind of generously and very loosely at the same time. I would say anywhere from 10 to 15 years. And any hunter that's been hunting for more than 10 to 15 years, the reason why is still their reason why. I still see it real often. Family was in it. I wanted to bring my family into it. I wanted to keep that tradition going. And then you get the new hunters who are like, hey, I thought it looked cool and I want to try it, right? And I encourage everybody to at least go out and try it. I actually had the opportunity last year um to take a pretty pretty hardcore vegan out, and I convinced her, and oh my god, I had to work my tail off to get her to even consider it. And I was like, let's go have some, just let me show you my world for just a few minutes. And we didn't even see anything. I think we saw like an owl and a coyote and maybe a couple squirrels. But we got back in, and one of the things that I always do is I turn back to the land and I just say thank you. Thank you for letting me come in safely and also leave safely, and just to be able to experience that. It's just a tradition that, my dad started, and I continue it. And, I got in the truck and she kind of sat there and she was like, okay. She was like, I get it. She's like, I understand now. And then I realized, I'm like, if I could put this out to people, maybe I could convince more people that we're not bloodthirsty, killers that are just out here to kill anything that moves. There is a reason as to why we do what we do. Um, and so that really got me into thinking about how can we, bridge that gap between us and the general public, and us and those who, continuously call us merciless killers. But when you go out into the woods, what's your mindset when you step in there? Is it peace? Is it focus? Is it like, are you in connection form with you in the woods, or is it something else?
To be honest with you, when I go out in the woods, it's my piece. So a little about me to kind of pre-frame that. I work for 911. I'm a supervisor. I deal with people's emergencies all day, every day I'm at work. So when I can step in the woods and just shut the outside world off for a little while, it is like my peace. I can go sit in a tree and not see anything, but I come out so much happier than I walked in. And
Yeah.
also, I'm a Christian, and I, I don't know how religion goes on your channel, but I'm very open about it. We pray for the deer, we pray when we get a deer, and it's just my chance to go in the woods and enjoy the Lord's creation and speak with Him a little bit. And I found, how do I put it? I've told somebody before, I feel more at church sometimes in the woods than I ever do in a building. So
Yeah.
it's kind of my refuge and my peace and my sanctuary. So, uh, and talking about the folks that don't like hunting or think all we do is kill, I wished it for a second I could just have them sit with me on the hunts where I did nothing but watch deer walk by and just
Yeah.
watch them. There's been many times I've sat in the tree and just watched. Didn't even pick up the bow or the gun or whatever I had that day. Just enjoy the Lord's creation and watch them and just enjoy being outside and not in four wall.
Yeah, no, I've said it, several times on several episodes, and I'm going to continue to say it because I think some people don't realize that I cannot be more serious when I say there are sometimes I go out there without a weapon. I go out there
Hmm.
just to sit sometimes when I need to clear my head because that's therapy to me. That is my therapy. That is my peace. That's my quiet. That's where I can go out and sort out what's going on a day-to-day basis, a Monday through Friday. That's where I can go out. And, you being a 911 operator, I used to be an EMT. I used to run somewhere, on a 12-hour period, I was running somewhere between 24 and 36 calls, on a 12-hour period. That's a busy, busy truck. And I've seen it pretty. You think it, I've seen it. I did it for
Hmm.
6 years, and now I'm active duty Navy, on submarines. So I there's still that level of stress that I have on a daily basis that I have to deal with. And sometimes, man, like I build up all year long for just that opening day, and I go out
Hmm.
and I come out a different person. And my wife has noticed it over the time. She's like, "Hey, you're just you just seem better when you come back out sometimes." I was like, sometimes, and she's like, "You didn't even bring a bow." And I'm like, "No." I was like, "I just wanted to go out
Hmm.
there and sit." And man, I'm telling you, and I tell people, and I've said it 100 times on the podcast, I'm going to say it 100 more. When you get to watch the morning sun and you hear the woods wake up and you realize that there is nothing else on this earth that matters than right here on God's creation and getting to watch these animals do the things that they do, and you are fooling these wild animals in their home, in their habitat, and you're getting to just sit there and be an observant. I'm telling you, man, there's nothing more amazing than that feeling right there. That feeling right there is something that it's my drug, man. It's my drug of choice. I love it. I fight for that all year round. But and I think that's something that a lot of people, like you're saying, man, if I could bottle that up and sell it, man, I'd be a millionaire by now.
Oh yeah, and another thing
You
too is I tell people from time to time too. You know, I've had a conversation with someone before that didn't like hunting, but they were a so-called intellectual. Let's use that term. And I
Yeah,
said, "Well, you like learning, right?" Yeah, I have learned more in a tree stand than you ever will in a book. If
absolutely.
you want to learn nature, go sit in nature. And some people don't think of it that way. They only see it. It goes to the one bad apple can ruin everything, and I think we're seeing that
Yeah.
in especially in the social media space, in the content creation space. You get one bad apple, and it can offset what 300 good hunters can produce.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that's a big thing that, I've talked about in the past. And, you know, I've asked it many times, and now we're on it. We'll just go ahead and ask it is, do you think social media is hurting or helping the hunting community? I really think that there's enough people that do have wholesome content, that do have the good part of it, but there's always that one. There's always one, man. There's always that one guy that has that content that I think the general public gets a hold of before they get to the wholesome content. So then they see the wholesome content, they're like, this isn't real. The first
Yeah,
one I watched is real, right? Perception's reality, and anyone who thinks that otherwise is a fool. Perception's reality, and I think that's what they've perceived us as. And I think it takes us, the actual good, ethical, morally straight, right hunters to fix that.
yeah. So one problem I see in the social media space, and it's just like the local news or whatever. It goes back to the bad news sales. You can post 300 good wholesome videos, but if they don't get clicks, then so what? So a lot of these outlets and medias, and I've noticed it in the past, and you can kind of go back and look at the trends. If you get that one bad apple and then one story, you get that shock factor of, oh, somebody did something bad, let me see what they did, compared to if you post 20 videos of just wholesome
Yeah.
educational content. They don't get clicks, so they don't get published or ran or reposted. So I think that's a big problem with it, and social media has just amplified that problem because all these accounts are competing for views, they're competing for airtime, they're competing for clicks. So obviously they're going to push whatever gets them that revenue stream, whatever gets them those clicks. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, again, bad news sales over good news. And kind of like you, it falls on us to kind of self police as hunters some, especially in like hunt clubs and stuff like that. When you have multiple members, you know, hold your fellow hunters accountable. Hey, let's maybe not do that. Let's rethink this, or even as simple as, hey, I understand that you did nothing wrong, but let's probably not post that because the way you have it worded or the way it looks, it can be misconstrued. And I think a little self policing could help in a lot of cases, and some people just don't think about that.
Yeah, I cannot agree more with literally everything that you said right there. You know, and I think the big thing is when it comes to when an outsider is looking in, right? When I was on the ambulance and I would say things, dark humor was a way that I coped with stress. I coped with, the things that I was seeing on scene. But I didn't, it took me a while to realize that when I would go to family events and the things that I was saying from an outsider looking in, it was horrible. It was horrible, horrible things that to me was nothing, but to
Well,
them
normal. Yeah.
was detriment, right? So if we continue as content creators posting things and the verbiage that we use or the even just the videos that we choose to post, if we continue to do that, you're giving that outsider who does not appreciate or does not want us to be who we are or do what we do or doesn't care to even begin to learn it, you're giving them all of the ammunition they need by just
Correct.
simply the things that you're posting. And I think it does come down to our fellow hunters to self-regulate and say, hey man, I'm just not nosy and not telling you what to do, but if I were you, I probably would have chose a different way to post that or a different way to say this or say that, only for the fact that an outsider looking in may not understand what smoked them meant, or
Hmm.
brown it's down, like those things sound bad to an outsider looking in.
No, absolutely. And working in the public service space is even more so. It can be not just my social career, my social media career, but if I'm not careful, it can be my actual career. And I think that's where a little bit of my self policing when it comes to my TikToks and stuff has come from. It's like, not only am I risking my channel and what I'm doing here, but if I slip up and say the wrong thing or offend the wrong person, it can have consequences on my actual career. So
Yeah.
it's kind of led to self policing there as well, on some of the things I say. I still say what I want
No.
to say. By all means, I'm just a little bit more careful about how I word it now.
Yeah, and I explained it to somebody on my earlier episode, and it's no disrespect to the general public, but it's the same thing as like if you work in your job and you have lingo in your job. To an outsider looking in, nobody understands what that means. But when you've been in it for a while, everything that you say makes sense. It's like Morse code. You just understand what you're doing, right? So when we're as content creators, when you're posting content, if you're not posting it to as if you were explaining it what I explain, and it sounds bad, but if you're not explaining it to it as if you would explain to a child what you're
Mhm.
doing and why you're doing it, there's going to continuously be that gap between us and the general public, and they're never going to choose to want to understand. But if you say it in a way that is encouraging, and you do it in a way that is inviting, they can eventually, curiosity kills the cat, and that's been proven throughout history. So if you continuously make someone's curious as to why you're doing what you're doing or the reasons as to what it is that you're doing, they're going to ask questions. And if you can get them continuously asking questions, you're winning the battle.
Yeah,
You have won over their mind even just a little bit, and that right there is worth more than where they were 3 weeks ago before they asked the question, when they were like, hunters are horrible people. So that is such an important thing that I think we can do. And I think that goes into and I really want to see what your take is on this. And I think this is a good thing to really put out is, what do you think separates a good hunter from a great one? And I don't want to know, and I don't like, I agree with you 100%. I do not think it's the size of the rack that does. So what do you, in your words, what is separates a good hunter from a great one?
So to me, you can be a good hunter and kill deer all day long. To me, that line gets crossed to when you get into the great hunter. A great hunter, in my mind, is somebody who shares the knowledge, who teaches others, and who brings people into the sport. I don't care how many trophies you have on the wall. You could have a shop full of 100 trophies, but in my mind, if you've never shared your knowledge, you never shared the passion we have for it, and you've never demonstrated that to somebody. I take the man with no mounts or one mount who shared it to 20 people and got them involved over you with your 100. And there's some things that everybody likes to keep secret. This is my secret blend, or this is my secret spot, or whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm just saying, to me, a great hunter is one that not only advances himself, but advances the sport and the heritage we have of it in general. I think that's where that line gets crossed when you go from good to great, is when you not don't worry about yourself anymore, you worry about the whole.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to that old, that old saying, right? Like, you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for the rest of his life. You give a man a fish to eat, he'll eat for one day. Like, it goes to that. And if we continuously hold back information and make it as competitive as it is right now, I mean, good lord, the guys who public, I mean, and I'm a public land hunter. I'm not native here. I don't know up here in New England. And it's taken me a lot of time to understand the public land hunting up here, because it is such a different community. Where when I grew up in Kentucky or Alabama, you know I didn't care to stop and talk to somebody on public land. But we'd have a full conversation. We'd share spots. I'd be like, yeah, man, right up here on this ridge line is a great spot. I just saw a couple does over there the other day. I'm going to try this new one. But if you want to go up there today, hey, go right ahead. I don't know the deer. They're yours. Have fun.
Yeah,
And let me know if you get anything. Here's my number. I'll help you drag it out. And then I got up here, and it's like, if you get caught having a conversation with a public land hunter up here, you're a mental case. You have problems. Like, you're looking for a conflict if you do it that way. And I think if we continuously, hold back information, you will never be, you know you can't sit here and say, well, the hunting community is failing. Yeah, you're failing it. You're one of the reasons. You're not passing on information. You're not continuously continuing a legacy that has been passed down for thousands of years. And it's not till, when social media has really, really hit the market now, that we're at risk of not having it anymore. I know
yeah,
the land that I know now is not the same land my grandfather knew. So
yeah.
God's not making any more land. We've got to protect the
Mhm.
ones that we have. And if we continuously allow the general public to think we're mercilessly killers, then yeah, we're not going to be able to keep it.
Yeah. So I'm blessed to hunt private. I'm actually going out of state and doing my first public land hunt next week, but I've been blessed to grow up hunting farmland that the family's on, so I've always been on private. But even the private game has turned into competitive. It used to be,
Yeah.
hey man, your farm's between my two farms. I've seen this deer. Have you seen him? Do you have any idea, or whatever, what have you? And used to be, yeah, man, he comes through this side of the property on this creek bottom every so often. I seen him here or there, whatever. And now, if you ask, hey man, my farm bumps up to yours, can can I have retrieval permission? I don't know. You might go in and snoop. Man, I'm not trying to go snoop. I'm just trying to go get the deer I shot. And
Yeah.
it's even private has become very competitive. And talking about losing land, North Carolina, we're blessed. We have a lot of public land for the state. I can think of 4 or 5 different game lands within an hour of my house that are over 1,000 acres. We have plenty of game
Yeah.
land, but the problem is North Carolina, Raleigh, Durham is expanding so rapidly. Like Granville County, for example, we used to be a very rural county, but now we're getting overflow from Raleigh and Durham folks building here and commuting, and it's making it where a lot of the farmland where you would have permissions gone away because the family can't afford the taxes anymore, or they're elderly and a subdivision developers come in and offer them X number of thousands of dollars for farmland they don't use anymore, and a lot of the private land has gone away. And my concern is, and we've even seen this in other states, we have to make sure that the public land doesn't come up to the chopping block. And Stephen Ranella with Meat Eaters and them, they've touched on that issue when the public land came up for sale a while back, or talked about it. And that's something that the hunting community needs to take into account too. If we don't protect what we have, who will? And that's,
Yeah.
to me, the competitive nature does not help that. If we're fighting each other, how can we stand together and fight for what everybody should be able to enjoy?
Yeah, and I can't Steve Ranella and them, they really, have come in and they really showed out when, there were thousands and thousands of acres up for the chopping block in the Midwest. And for those of you who listening who, maybe this is not your day to day. This is not something that you have ever given a single thought about. I encourage you to just Google public land selling and just there are thousands of things that pop up. And I need you to realize, like, maybe you don't have a true concept of what an acre is, but to those who care, those who, I grew up working for farmers for just the opportunity to hunt on their land. I would work like a dog during the summer and be like, hey, all I ask is that, during the winter, I don't care that you pay me. I care that in the winter you give me the opportunity to hunt here. And they were like, absolutely, it's yours, but we'll still pay you for the work, right? And that's just good old fashioned, the way it works. And you know it's like if you have 100-acre farm, that's a pretty good sized farm, man. That's a
Mm-hmm.
large chunk of land. But if you lose 20% of it, if you lose 20 acres, you have no idea how massive that is to these farmers, how
Mm-hmm.
massive that is to landowners as a whole. So when you lose 20% of your land, you, the, it is detrimental to the community, to the wildlife, to conservation. It is detrimental to the change when you throw up a subdivision or you throw up a condo or you throw up apartment complexes in these areas, because with that becomes pollution, and with pollution becomes dead acres. And out of, I think the statistic is, if with an apartment complex, you can just go ahead and assume that the like surrounding 10 acres around this apartment complex will never be the same. It will
Mm-hmm.
continuously change because of the foundation that was laid for that apartment complex. So it really does matter, but and I think those are the things that really is the conversations that aren't being had because we're afraid to have it. And I'm not. I'm the type of person that I'll tell you straight to your face. If I don't like you, I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
tell you why, and I'm going to give you a list of
Mm-hmm.
reasons why. Fix them or don't. That's your choice. But I'm going to give you the reasons, and I'm not going to be afraid to tell you. And if I don't like something, and if I see it that it's not changing, then we need to change as a hunting community, and it's just as an outdoors community for those who like to hike.
Yeah,
There's no
that's what I
land
was
to
about to
hike if
say.
there's an apartment complex.
That's what I was about to say. If you're listening to this and don't care anything about hunting, think about all the other uses that public land has.
Yeah,
Swimming, for example, some of the lakes, swimming, hiking, biking, kayaking, the whole nine. Now, just
yeah,
imagine a way I put it to you, to people before is, y'all live in an apartment complex. Y'all have a little community center. It's got a pool, a gym, and you enjoy that. Okay, consider your apartment complex the state and your little community center the public land. What happens when y'all's apartment complex loses that little hunk of entertainment you have? You no longer have swimming. You no longer have a gym. And I've used
yeah.
that before to kind of explain my point to people, and it's kind of gotten the point across when they have no idea about public.
No, I can't. I tell people all the time when you think about losing acreage and you think about the public land being sold, or a farmer of 7 generations having to sell his land because he can't handle the state tax anymore, the property tax for it anymore. Imagine something that has been so dipped rich in blood and tradition that he physically cannot continue to keep the piece of land, and he has no choice but to sell it. Can you imagine the guilt that that person has to feel? That's a whole piece of their house. Imagine somebody coming in and removing a room from your house, just a room, right? Not the whole house, but just a room. You're gonna notice the difference. You're gonna be like, where the
Oh,
hell is my
absolutely.
master bedroom? You know,
Mm,
like there's clearly a piece of my house missing. You know, that it may not be the whole house, but it's chunks, and those chunks matter to people, and those chunks matter to those around us and those in our community. Um, and I think, you know, that is something that we really need to work on now. And if we want to continue to have the opportunity, because I don't think of it as a right, I think of it as an opportunity, because it's been taken care of up to this point, but it's no
mhm.
longer being taken care of, right? It's the same thing as when your kids are playing with a toy and they abuse the toy. Well, guess what? I'm taking the toy away because you're not playing with it the right way. It's the same. The entire country is looking at it like that, right? You're not taking care of the land. You're dumping trash. You're dumping carcasses. You're doing all of this, you know, atrocious things to the environment without ever giving a second notice to those who, like me, who always goes into, you know, land with a trash bag in my hunting backpack so that I can bring trash out as I come in and out, and if I'm scouting. I always pick up trash, and those of us who are in the outreach programs, right? Those are amazing to get the name and the reputation out. You know, those outreach programs. I had the opportunity this year to take out a wounded veteran, or last year to take out a wounded veteran. And man, I'm telling you, if you are a hunter and you have been hunting and you have good experience and you have the knowledge base, if you have the opportunity to take somebody hunting or
Mhm.
fishing or whatever it is, take them, please. I learned more in that 3 hour hunt than I could have ever even imagined to learn anywhere else on this earth. You know,
Mhm.
that guy had such a story to tell. And we didn't even see a deer,
Yeah.
but we both left with giant smiles ear to ear, you know, like just having a great time. And I'm trying to get him back out to, he's a little sick right now, but I'm hoping to try to get him out this year for now that I'm filming and doing the things that I need to do.
So one thing I always try, and I'll challenge your listeners to this too, and it's always been in my ears ever since I grew up. Take one person hunting a year that may have never done it or has limited experience. One person. Just think about it. If each one of us takes one person hunting that has never hunted before, you've just doubled the amount of hunters for the year.
Yeah.
And I don't think people recognize how drastic just taking one person for one hunt can be. And like you touched on earlier, the one lady, if 500 people, even if the whole hunting population doesn't take anybody, if 500 people take one person who's never been hunting this year, that's 500 new hunters that hopefully we've recruited or at least educated on what we do.
Yeah, and I think, and I really want to emphasize on what the word you just said is educate, right? We can't begin to understand another community unless we learn to educate ourselves about it, right? And there are a lot of things that, you know, whether I agree with it or not, I'm going to learn about it so that I have the ability to say, well, it's not because of my feelings, it's because I know about it and I just don't agree with it. Or, you know, it may be something that I've never even tried before. You know, it may be a whole new thing that I'm just so uneducated about it that I have this misunderstanding from social media or just as a whole, as my own person, that I may not understand it. And if I actually spend the time to educate myself, you would be absolutely mind blown, you know, about, you know, how much that changes, you know. But I think it's so much more that the outdoors does for people. And I really try to encourage people, you know, sailors, young sailors that, you know, spend all day inside and playing video games and doing this, that, and the other. And I try to take them out as many times as I can. I have 3 hunts coming up this week. I've got some family coming up to help with. Like I said, we have a 7-week-old newborn, so it's been a little hectic in my household recently. But I have like 3 or 4 hunts coming up with a couple of very young sailors who are from like giant cities. I think one's from New York, one's from like Chicago, and I think one's from LA. These guys have never seen the woods. They didn't even know like deer was a thing until they lived on base, and deer just constantly are moving by. You know, but and I tried to explain to them, but I want to hear it from your words. What is like how has hunting really changed the way you see life? It like was it is it patience? Is it gratitude? Like what is a value that you learn from hunting that you could never learn anywhere else on the earth.
I think the biggest thing that hunting has always instilled in me, and it comes from my parents, my upbringing too, but hunting has instilled the utmost integrity in me than I think anything else could ever teach you. Because when you're out in the woods and it's just you and the deer, you have to be honest with yourself and you have to force yourself to follow the rules. I mean, there's many times that you can look at your watch and go, "Well, it's only 3 minutes after," and that's really instilled that in me. And sorry. And I think that's really a big part of hunting. And one thing that is always instilled in me growing up is you have to be honest with yourself. And, it goes back to that what you do in the dark comes to the light kind of deal. And that's one thing that hunting's always taught me. And another thing is patience. I've never been a patient man. My wife will tell you right now, I have about the amount of patience as a firecracker fuse. But when I go in the woods, it's totally different. I can sit,
No, 100.
4 hours, 5 hours, and not bat an eye. But you let me sit in at the restaurant, and my order, I haven't been seen after 45 minutes, I'm gonna be ill. So those are probably the two best things hunting's done for me over the years.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we are married to the same woman, because if you ask my wife on a on any other day that ends with Y, what my patience level is, put me in traffic and I can assure you it's zero. There's none. There's no patience whatsoever. But I can do a 12-hour hunt, no question, and not even bat an eye. I can be a just a statue in this tree, and barely touch my phone at all. And so I think those are great things. And
Mouse is just
I think those are
lifelike
things that
touch.
I think those are things in life that I think a lot of the new generation of hunters, and I think a lot of kids really need to develop is having the patience, having the gratitude, the respect of nature and of these animals that we are, so just in love with, that we're willing to do whatever it takes to get, to have the opportunity, to see them just in the wild. I'm happy just seeing a deer, let alone if I bring
Mhm.
it home or not. And I
And
think a
I,
lot of the generation are missing that.
I think another thing that the younger ones, especially coming up now, this generation coming up now, I personally think hunting would teach a lot of them the consequences that they don't get taught elsewhere. Um, I don't know
Yeah,
about you, but growing up, you know, consequences were a very real thing. It wasn't just a stern talking to, and
yeah,
the woods will teach you consequences that you didn't know existed. Okay, yeah, walk across that log that you think is sturdy if you want to. I promise you, you'll be wet before you get across the creek. It teaches life
yeah,
lessons the hard way, and I honestly think that a lot of kids and younger generation need some of those hard life lessons that the woods give you. We didn't learn what we know just by, oh yeah, that's probably not a good idea. We learned because we said, oh yeah, that's a good idea, and found out real quick it won't.
yeah. And I think, and it gets said so often, that I think so many of the new generation of just people. I'm not even gonna just say hunters. I'm just gonna say people as a whole. I think they've heard so much and so often that they tend to just tone it out as white noise. But literally and truly, hear me out when I say this: hard work and dedication and your attitude and your effort plays like the biggest role of just life
Hmm.
as a whole. And when I go out and I go look at this new land of hunting and I scout 3 times as much as I actually hunt, and I'm successful, when I come home, whether it's a doe or whether it's a 6 point, it doesn't matter to me. I fooled this animal and I did enough research and I did enough scouting to put myself in a successful position to harvest this animal in an ethical way, in a morally correct way that I consider is morally and ethically correct. And I was able to bring home meat to my family that my family is going to get to enjoy, that my hard work and daddy's hard work and dedication paid out, and we're getting to eat and reap the rewards of
Hmm.
it. And I think that's man, worth its weight in gold. But one of the things that I think your TikTok page and the community that you're building is such an amazing thing, and I really wanted to ask you is, do you feel a responsibility to represent hunters well online, or is that just how you are?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, just I've always been brought up, put your best foot forward and be the best you can be. So I've always tried to be that way. However, at the same time, coming up, I've been blessed to be field staff for some companies like Title X Archery and Hunting RX, and then I represent Game Cuffs and Rack Getter Sense. So that also puts the pressure on me that, hey, I'm not representing myself. I'm representing an entire community of hunters plus these businesses. So if I screw up, I can cost somebody else their livelihood, or at least impact their livelihood. So that plays a lot into it as well. So kind of shameless plug, but it is what it is. It plays into it,
Nah, man.
and
I
by
just
all
got my first
means,
discount code.
yeah. But and it also goes into that building your tribe mentality or building the community. I try and surround myself with companies and people that follow the same ideals that I do. Like Title X,
Mm.
Title X Archer. I can pick up my phone right now and call Landon if I needed something, and he'll answer and be honest with me. That's kind of how I am to anybody that I bring into my fold. Hey, my phone's always on. Call me. I'll be honest with you. You may not like what I tell you, but at the end of the day, I'm here for you, and I'm here to help build you up and teach you and do whatever I can to help you. So these guys like Title X and Hunting RX and all of them, kind of the same deal. I've tried to align myself with them. So back to your question of representing hunters as a whole, it helps me represent the community when I surround myself with good images in the community as well. So when somebody comes to my TikTok page and sees, oh, he's a hunter, oh, well, let me look at these companies that he's got posted as well. Oh, they're really good. They're really educational. They're really nice. They're helping the community out. It looks good on the hunting community as a whole. And I've always tried to make sure that whoever I've aligned myself with follow that message. And unfortunately, in the past, I've had some folks that kind of double back on that, and you will find none of their stuff on my page. I've deleted wholesale videos just because I'm not going to be associated with stuff that's going to be a negative light on me or the community I'm trying to build. So, long story short, to answer your question, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah, and I think that's so important with the content creation portion of the outdoor community, is keeping your morals correct, right? Not willing to waver them for a brand deal, or a discount code, or a company reaching out to you and say, hey, we want you to represent our company, but we want you to change a few things, right? And not willing to waver from those things is what makes an authentic content page. And I think that's such a thing that is so misunderstood, when you're getting into these things, is a lot of people, they want the good deals. I don't blame you. I get it. Whether I get a discount code or whether I get a brand deal or not, I don't care. I care that I bring in somebody new every single year. And I bring in, I change someone's opinion every single year. And, I think that's something that you've done so well in your community that you've built online. Is balancing authenticity with the, professor or, the pressure to perform on social media at the same time. You've done a really, really well job at balancing both of those, but keeping both of those at a high standard, right? And those are things that, when you get into these communities and you're getting a little bit of popularity, continue to keep where you came from. Right? Remember where you came from. Remember where you started. Remember your reasons why you got into it in the first place, not because of the brand deals. Nobody gets
Yeah,
into hunting to make $1 million.
yeah,
It's not a thing. But if we can bring somebody new in and we can change somebody's perspective, and maybe, here and there, if you're a good content creator, make $1, cool, great, awesome.
yeah.
you know?
my mentality to that's always been, and I've told this to a couple people and they laugh all the time, but I've always said I was broke and didn't have a social media following before I started all this. So whatever you offer me ain't gonna change that. Like I've
Yeah.
grown up without it. I don't need your product or your discount code. I don't care. I'm just here to have fun and be me. And do I want to make a few bucks eventually? Of course, everybody wants to make money, but at the same time, I was doing just fine before your money. I don't have to change to take it, and I think that's
Yeah.
helped me a lot in this space.
No, I can't agree more. And I think that that comment right there is what all content creators should be saying to these businesses. Whether you endorse me or not, I don't care. I'm gonna continue doing the things that I do, with or without you. And if you wanna get on this trail, hey, let's bust it up together. But if you're not and you want me to try to, deviate from my course, see you, dude. Hope you have a great time. Hope your company does well. I wish you the best. But that's one of the things that I really wanted to ask you is what kind of, based on your page, I've seen, and it's something that is intriguing to me. It's one of the reasons that I joined, the community that you're building. But what kind of community are you trying to build through West Farm Whitetails?
So really, I started out not having a community in mind. I just wanted to kind of share what I did on a daily basis. But as it's kind of grown a little bit, I've tried to surround my folks with self with folks that have like mindset. So, you get the followers that never really interact. They follow you. You might see a like from them here or there, but uh, I try to build it where the people that I interact with the most, or interact with my content the most, align with my ideals and align with how I'm trying to represent myself in the space that we're in. um, like I said, earlier, Title X is a good example. They interact with a bunch of my stuff. Landon's great. Sea Deer Camo is another that interacts with a bunch of my stuff. I'm not even affiliated with him other than Jason's a great dude, and I've talked to him before. They are wonderful people. Warhead Air Company is another one. Again, not field staff for him, not endorsed by him. I paid full price for everything I got from him, but I, they're good people, and I've tried to build a community that reflects my ideals and does the same thing I do. Like if you go to my page and see a company that's on my page that's interact with my stuff, I want them to be a company that you as a person, if I never know about the interaction, I would feel comfortable with you having an interaction with them. And I hope that statement makes sense. Another way to put it is if you come to my page and go to Tilex Archery and send him a message with a question, if I never know about it, I know enough about them to feel comfortable in that you're going to get the help you need in a professional way. So
Yeah.
on the commercial side, that's the community I've tried to build. On the personal side, I've tried to build a small community of folks like myself. Faithbound Outdoors and Whitetail Ridge, the two guys that came out for the creator hunt. Never met them before. Just interacted with them some on social media, on TikTok, messaged back and forth, talked to them, got to know them a little bit before I invited them out, obviously. But I pick people that match my energy and match what I do, and they are prime examples of that. They got here, and within 30 minutes, we were cutting the crap, shooting bows, and having a ball. And that's
Yeah.
kind of what I go for is, you know, I want everybody to be comfortable. I want everybody to be happy, and I want everybody to learn. But at the same time, I want everybody to kind of fall in the same step as I do, so I know we won't have any problems here.
Yeah. And I can't agree more, and I can't tell you, how impressive it is to see the community that, whether you meant to or not, that you have built, from brick by brick, layer by layer. It is something that you have built and are continuously building. And I actually have, several guys that are, coming on. Cedar Camo, he's coming on. Jason, he's coming on to, have a conversation. And I'm not represented by him in any way, form, or fashion. I told him, he asked me, he's like, "Hey, are you filming hunts?" I was like, "Yeah, I have 73 hours worth of video to go through." I was like, but I first wanted to reach to the community and have these conversations with these hunters before I cared about myself. I care about getting other people's opinions and getting them out there. And he was like, I love that. He was like, and he's veteran, great guy. VIP archery, I just bought some broadheads from him not long ago. Great
Matt,
great guy,
great.
Matt. He yeah, he's a fantastic guy. And he's also a former Navy vet. So we've got something in common, man. Who yeah. And I think those are the communities, right? Don't get me wrong. Mossberg and Redhead and all of these massive companies, Muddy and all these great companies are fantastic and wonderful. But these small communities who are in it, who care about the individuals who are getting into it and wanting to get more individuals into it, I'm telling you, man, you're not going to find cooler people than that right there.
Exactly.
That is some of the coolest individuals you'll get to have the opportunity to talk to and interact with. And if you have a problem with a product that they sell, not only are they going to fix it immediately, but they're going to figure out a way to compensate the reason that it happened or make it better, and they are fantastic at doing that. And the content creators who are putting out those good content and those good, businesses, man, I'm telling you, are worth $1 million and worth their weight in gold.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that drew me most into what you're creating. And one of the things that you're doing on your channel is, you're representing the small companies who care about the little
Mhm.
guy. It's not
Yeah.
the big people that they care about, it's the little guy, the guy that has to work 12-hour shift and bust his tail and has to spend his money on things. They want to give them a product that they can trust and a product that they're willing to do whatever it takes, to make it the best for them. And I think that's something that's amazing. But I kind of wanted to circle back because we talked about it before, and I think this question really gets a lot of people thinking, and it gets a lot of people to understand our thought process as hunters and as outdoorsmen. What does being an ethical hunter mean to you in today's society versus what it used to mean 20 years ago?
Well, when I first started, ethical was you just followed the law, right? So,
Correct.
you didn't break no laws and you were good. You were an ethical hunter.
Yeah.
And in this day and age, it's more to me with the amount of technology we have or have access to, being an ethical hunter is more than just following the law now. It's not abusing the technology to a way that's unfair to the game. So, for example, cell cameras. Cell cameras are a wonderful tool, but to me, they cross the line of ethical when you can set them to as soon as something moves in front of them, they send you a picture, and then you can hop in your truck, run down. Oh, I got a corn pile, on the end of this field. Oh, there's a buck in it. Let me go shoot him. That kind of
Yeah.
crosses the ethical line there for me. Another thing, thermal drones. They're starting to become more popular with like the recovery stuff. You know, somebody got a little money, you can make that very unethical real quick. I know what the law states, but if you get somebody with a little money and a little time, and all of a sudden, well, I know exactly what it is, Lane. I got him on thermal drone. Let me run down there real quick. So
Yeah.
this day and age, with the amount of technology we have, and just at our fingertips, the ethicality really comes in. With that technology. And another thing is just especially here, you're getting a lot of land that's owned by folks who are not here. Uh, to be an ethical hunter, you got to know, hey, just because they don't live here and it's not posted, don't mean I can just go run really willy nilly through it. And I've seen that a lot too. So this day and age, those are the two big things I've seen. And other than that, it just goes back to being honest, man. Be honest, be fair to the game, be fair to everybody else, and treat the game and everybody how you will want to be treated. And that's kind of my golden rule and motto.
Yeah, and I can't agree more. And I think this is something, and I've said it before on the podcast, and I'm going to continue to say it because it is so important. If you're not practicing ethical hunting, every time you step out of your vehicle into those woods, you are failing not only yourself, but you're failing all of those who are. And you are the reason that the hunting community as a whole is so misunderstood by the general public because you're not doing the ethical things. You're not taking those ethical shots. You're not practicing during the off season and making sure that you are not only proficient, but you are lethal right, with your firearm or your weapon of choice. If you're not making sure that you're not just, taking the deer for its antlers, right, for what it's worth, but you're taking the deer as a whole, and you're respecting the game that you're doing, and that you're hunting, those are things that really really matter, and the world sees, whether you think it or not. The world sees it. Some hiker is going to pass by, and if you just cut the head off a deer because of its antlers and you leave the rest of it sitting there, some hunter or some hiker is going to walk by and be like, what in the world? And now all hunters now have a new image that we have to battle. So the more you are less ethical, the more you're having to make the rest of us work harder. And so I really tell people that all the time. If you're not practicing that on a daily basis, you are failing the rest of us. And I'm so glad you got into technology. I'm so glad you touched into it, because I think that's such a controversial, conversation that people have and are afraid to have, right? With technology, right? And I've said it before on the podcast, I've covered it, right? I think thermal drone recovery, and I say that very loudly and as bold and underlined as possible, recovery is a fantastic use of technology and drones. I think it's amazing. I think it's wonderful. If you're using drones for scouting, though, you've now crossed what I consider an ethical boundary that I'm not willing to cross, right? You have taken the sportsmanship and the fair advantage that these deer have, or these ducks, or this moose, or this elk, or this bear, that they have the level of secrecy inside the woods. And if you've taken that away because you're 1,500 feet in the air with a thermal drone, you've removed that. And I think those, so I kind of want to figure out, you touched on it a little bit, but how do you feel about the digital mapping, the AI scouting, the drone not just recovery, but also the drone scouting? Where do you feel, and where do you line up with?
So obviously, with the drone recovery, I'm all for it. Anything we can do to find anything that we've shot, whether we've made that perfect ethical kill shot, or if it's wounded, we need to go dispatch. Anything that we can do to improve our success there, or improve how quick we can do it, I'm all for. When it comes to the AI stuff, I played around with it some. Um, Again, AI is a tool, so you can use it in ways that I find fair, but you can also use it in ways that I find very unfair, right? So it with the AI stuff, it just depends on what you're using it for. I'm not well enough versed into what all it is able to do right now to really form a solid opinion on it, and I'll be the first to tell you that. I haven't educated myself on the AI stuff that much. However, when we start talking about scouting and stuff like that with the thermals, I don't have a problem in the off season of like herd population density studies or land scouting, stuff like that. Perfect. I kind of draw the line though is okay, it's November. I'm gonna throw the drone up this morning and see where they're at, and then I'm gonna go in there and take one. That to me is a little much.
Yeah,
And I think we'll end up again, this is just me thinking out loud and thinking towards the future. I don't know if it ever will, but to me, I feel like we'll eventually end up with some legislation on it, kind of like Alaska we're flying, right? Alaska, a lot of times you can't hunt the same day you fly. I kind of feel like we'll eventually see some legislation along the same lines of, well, if you're flying a drone, you can't hunt today or something like that.
yeah,
And another thing that I really am on the fence about is, a lot of these trail cameras now are getting to the point of it's wild what they can do as far as how quick they can get pictures to your phones and stuff.
yeah,
I'm all for cell cameras. Between me and my best friend in Ohio, we have probably 20 cell cameras running right now. So I'm not against their use entirely. I just kind of draw the line with some of the like Moultrie, you can tag deer where you've picked that one deer, and now the camera and AI tell you, well, yes, this is this deer. He's at this spot. To me, that's almost taken the fair chase out of it. When you have him patterned so much, I know exactly what time he's going to be because the camera says he's there. That gets a little
yeah,
much to me. Um,
yeah.
and
I
and one. Yeah. And one more thing I'm gonna say about the cameras to everybody. I just want to tell folks, remember, hunt the deer, don't hunt the cameras. We've seen that so much.
Oh my God, I am so like I if you go back and you watch like the last you watch the last 4 episodes, I have told a story that it makes me so mad because I wasted so much time when I remember when trail cameras first came out and it was digital film. I had to go out there and literally put a new coil of film out there inside my trail camera and then take that to like a Walgreens, a CVS, a Walmart, and have them actually, produce the photos for me. Um, like it was I was back when trail cam was first started, right? And then we got the SD cameras, and then the SD cameras with the little digital board that you could take out there and read the SD card right out there right in front of your camera, right? And I saw a buck, a great shooter buck, about 3.5 4 years old. Fantastic. Have not seen him on my property yet during rut. I hunted that spot, and I hunted it for 2 weeks hard, every day, morning, noon, and night. Like I hunted that spot ridiculously hard, and I got to learn a really valuable lesson. If you take trail cameras for anything more than just a picture, you are failing as a whole. It is just you are looking at 1 second of what that deer is doing, and during what that time, I didn't realize until later on that I had put a trail camera up on the other side of the property, that the other side of the property was his primary use. And
Hmm.
this was his secondary escape route when there was a problem. And I was hunting the secondary escape route when there was a problem. And so take trail cameras for what they're worth, face value. There's a deer. Great. That's all right? Now, if you're putting your trail camera above a pile of corn, that's a little different. Yeah, you kind of know what, you're looking more of the time rather than the deer, right? But, if you are a public land hunter and you're putting out trail cameras, or you just bought a piece of property, or you're on a lease of a property and you put out trail cameras, take them for face value. Now, I will tell you, and I don't know if you're aware of this, and and I tried it recently, just out of curiosity. There's a piece of land that I've hunted up here in Rhode Island. Um, it's all right, it was okay. I saw some does here and there, maybe like a small buck, but I wouldn't say it was a mass producing piece of property. And I scouted every ounce of that land, every acre I've walked, and so I have stands marked on like Onyx all over the place. So I took a picture and I wiped away all of my hunts and then the waypoints. I wiped them all away. I took a screenshot and I put it onto an AI scouting app. And the AI scouting app, not only was it as extremely descriptive, but it found all of my stands and then added 3 more that were better of positions than where I had found, and it told me what time of day to hunt it, and then it had asked me, give me the forecast for the next 10 days and I'll tell you which stand to sit in. Like it's extremely accurate, and way too detailed to really be comfortable. So if you are a new hunter and you are a listener that's a new hunter, please I can't tell you enough what boots on the ground really will teach you. Go do your research, go do your homework, go do the hard job, right? Go walk it, go look at some things, right? Now, where I think it can be beneficial is if you're paying those 2, 3, 4, $5,000 trips to like, out to the Midwest for an elk, and you want to just help your chances just a little bit, right? Because I think that the success rate for those is like 8 to 10%. It's a really small percentage, and you do.
If you can even draw a tag.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And it's a small percentage, right? And then, you're doing 10, 15 miles a day out on those hunts. It's a ridiculous amount of time that you're putting out, for just the chance of seeing an elk, right? Um, I think it could be beneficial there. I think it could really help your chances out there. But if you're going to public land and taking a screenshot and throwing it to AI and you're like, hey, find me a spot, and then you go hunt that spot this morning and then you put a deer down, I really don't feel like you've actually done the work. Like
Yeah,
you may have sat the time, but you didn't do the homework. And I think that is where we cross the ethical boundary. And and I do want to ask you, do you think that the state should regulate the technology, or do you think that it should be more self-regulated?
I personally feel like it should be more self-regulated. I mean, because everything has its place and what have you, but when it comes to the states, some states, in my opinion, are way too involved, and in some states they're not involved enough. So
Yeah.
it becomes that fine line of you're starting to get political, and then you're starting to add all these other factors. But at the end of the day, I feel like everything should start with self regulation and go from there. So, like as a hunting community, if we can't regulate how we're using this stuff and it's making us unfair to the game, then of course, then we need to take it a step further, because at the end of the day, uh, if we don't protect it, who will? So if
Yeah.
we don't protect it, the next step is the states, and then that opens a whole nother can of worms. But yeah,
Yeah.
but hearing that, it's wild what AI can do. And,
Yeah.
I also tell people, when it comes to technology, it's technology. At the end of the day, it can fail, it can tell you wrong, it can do so many different things. But at the same time, if you build the knowledge base and go to the woods, like right now, if you took every trail camera I owned away, you took every satellite image I hid away, you took every hunt stand or Spartan Forge pin I have away, I can still go back here, find somewhere and hunt. If you're relying on AI like you're talking about, and that's how you're hunting, unfortunately, you have no base skills to fall back on. So let's
Yeah.
say AI tells you to hunt stand A on, like for your example, public land. AI says, let's hunt stand A today. Okay, you go to stand A and somebody's sitting in a tree 50 yards from it. Are you still going to go to stand A? You don't have
Yeah.
those base skills to fall back on. And I think that's where a lot of technology becomes a crutch for a lot of the newer hunters. They get so used to having it, they haven't built up the base set of skills. And that's kind of where technology kind of irks me a little bit.
Yeah, I can't agree more. I think you like I said, and I say it again, and I'll say it again and again and again. You have to have base knowledge. You need to go out there and touch grass, and learn what a shelf is, learn what thermals do, learn what a ridge line, why it's important, learn what natural food plots are, learn why creek beds are important, learn why low level and then high level ground of hunting it changes so much, what a morning routine is versus an evening routine, what a thicket can be and what a thicket can't be. Like, if you're not learning these things, you're failing yourself, and you're only relying on somebody to tell you what to do instead of going out there and doing it yourself, which is again the hard work and dedication portion that I've talked about. But one of the things that I want to ask, and I think you were saying, you kind of touched a little bit into it, is how do we keep the tradition of hunting alive for the next generation?
The biggest way I see us keeping this heritage and tradition alive is just sharing our knowledge, like teaching these newer folks how to hunt, what to hunt, how to do it. And also, it goes back to what we've been talking about all night, putting a good light for the hunting community. Because eventually, if we don't fix some of the wrongs that have been going on, we're not going to be able to pass it on, because we're not going to be able to hunt.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing is we need to do all we can to share what we have, and not make it so competitive. And, another thing is adapting what we've always done to meet the new challenges of what we're having. For example, here in North Carolina where I live, this particular portion of the state still allows deer hunting with dogs during firearm season. They can run dogs through, you know, and a dog can't read a trespassing sign or anything like that. So that opens its own can of problems with with land being bought up and folks that are not so keen on hunting coming in, and timber harvests and the ever changing landscape. For example, with the dog hunting, that's where technology come in and helped a little bit with GPS tracking and collars and stuff of that nature. We have to adapt what we've always done to meet what we currently have.
Yeah.
And that goes for, stand hunting and public land hunting and all that as well, with changing regulations and changing landscapes. For example, I have one farm I used to, you could take a 30-06 and go hunt it however you wanted to. Changing landscape, folks moving in, properties being bought up or whatever, I'd be scared to take more than a bow now. So with passing stuff on, we have to learn to transition ourselves away from what we've always done to make it what we're trying to accomplish fit what we have. And I think that gets lost on some folks. Well, we've always done it this way. Well, I get that, and I wish we could still do it that way. But this is what we have to work with, so we need to make it work in a way that still preserves what we're trying to do.
Yeah. I think that's yeah, I can't agree more. I think if we, you know, have those conversations with those old timers, man, you'll learn something. Like I grew up on the Farmer's Almanac. That's how I knew the best times to hunt. Was the Farmer's Almanac would tell me like, "Hey, this season is good for acorns." I'm like, "Cool, I'm gonna go hunt oak tree." Like those are things that you need to really spend time to learn. But what's the biggest misconception that non-hunters have that you've noticed on your community and the comments that you get? What's the biggest misconception that non-hunters really have that you know they don't really understand? It's just misconception about it.
So the biggest thing I've seen on the social media side of things from non-hunters is they just like if I'm every once in a while I go live from the stand or something if I have service, they just expect, well, where are the deer? They expect us that we're just walking into the woods and immediately seeing deer and taking a deer. But that's not how that works. I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest misconception I've seen continuously in the social media space. And another one is, so you're just taking the deer to take a deer. No, I'm taking that deer, and then what you don't see because TikTok won't let me show you what I do after I harvest that deer is I'm taking it back home. I'm gutting it out. I'm getting every scrap of meat I can off the carcass. If I have somebody who wants to hide, the hide's going to somebody. The antlers get used if it's nothing but for decoration for the clubhouse. They don't go to waste. I get everything I can from that animal and use everything I can off that animal.
Yeah.
I think that's where social media can hurt us some too. Is all we can show is up to the harvest, and we can't show anything after the harvest on certain platforms, and that gives
Yeah.
us a bad light too. Because oh, you did all this work and you taking the deer, now I can't show you all the benefits I get from that.
No, 100%. I think that's exactly right. And one of the things that I'm working on, and I've almost got complete. There's a couple more admirals that I've got to go through. That I'm getting ready to put out on my platforms is, one of the things that I'm getting ready to start doing is after I get the meat for me and my family to last us, for a little bit, any excess that I have or any excess that any hunter has that they're like, hey, I just wanted the back straps. I don't care about the rest of it, right? I'm getting ready to set up a donation page where you can donate it to troops and sailors that are on, submarines or on, a surface vessel and they're away from home and maybe that's something that they grew up eating and it's a good morale booster, man. Like
Mhm.
good deer jerky, man, it's a dime in a dozen, man. And let me tell you, being someone who's done 6 months, underwater, it sucks. It sucks.
Yeah, I
It's
can
horrible.
imagine.
And when we get a fresh pot of coffee or our cooks make us some brownies, like those little things really keep you going. And so one of the things that I'm working on is getting where, we donate meat. A lot of hog meat that's in Texas. I'm trying to build this bridge where we can take the nuisance hog and turn that into meat where these sailors get to have something good to eat, doing out there doing hard stuff and being away from family. It's hard enough as it is. The least we can do is have a little comfort from home. And so I'm working on doing that. And the other thing is an outreach program with a lot of these sailors, to bring them in and let them learn how to not only do it for themselves, but learn from somebody who's been doing it for quite a while. I've been hunting for almost 18 years. So I have enough knowledge now that I feel okay enough to teach someone else, and
Yeah.
it's so funny to people who I talk to who are in the hunting community. They're like, 18 years, you're a veteran at that point. I'm like, no, I'm still a rookie, man. I
Oh yeah.
still that those woods still humble me every time I walk in, and every hunt I learn something new. And like, especially with rut coming up right now, right? I've never had a rut season that I've never been humbled and I've never learned something new. And if you ever have a season where you don't learn something new, you failed. You had a horrible season. Chalk that up as an L. Like, go to the drawing boards and restart because you did not do something right. But one of the things that I really want to see your mentality is where do you see the future of hunting in the next 20 years if we continue down the path that we're going now?
So, unfortunately, with how we're going now, my Carolina dog hunters don't come at me for this. With the rate of land loss and how much land's being bought up and posted and whatever, I don't see the dog hunting in North Carolina lasting 20 years. If they get another 10 out of it, it'll surprise me. And guys,
Yeah.
if you're listening, I promise you, I love y'all to death. I have no problems with you whatsoever. I'm just speaking the truth from how I see it. As far as everything else, if we continue down the make the money, the competitive, the all about the dollar, all about the size path that we're going, it's going to end up a rich man's sport. It's going to end
Yeah.
up if you don't have land, if you don't have equipment, then you're not going to be able to hunt. It's just everywhere you look on social media, somebody's pushing a new piece of equipment that's $1,500, $2,000. Everybody is, pushing hunting leases. Oh, hunting leases, however many thousands of dollars an acre. Uh, guided hunts. Oh, you're looking at $10,000. It's quickly becoming a rich man's sport, and to me, that kind of drifts away from what hunting should be and has always been, and that's putting meat on the table. But in 20
Yeah.
years, if we keep going with this whole, it's all about the money, it's all about the size, it's all about the fame, then it's going to end up, like I said, a rich man's sport. If you don't have a farm that you've bought and thousands of dollars a year to put into it, then you're not going to be able to hunt. And unfortunately, that opens up a whole nother can of problems. If it does become a rich man sport and the public grounds are taken away and the opportunity for your average Joe Blow to hunt is taken away, just think of what that's going to do to the population. For
Yeah.
example, Seek One down in Atlanta, I think it is. Just look at how many does those guys put down on doe days because
Yeah.
there's no hunting in there. Now, just imagine that on a larger scale. Like those are issues you run into, and it's something that a lot of people I don't think about for the long term is the consequences of not hunting or losing the option to hunt.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have a misconception that hunters are not conservationalist. Like it is so much more than just the kill for us. It's especially for West Farm Whitetails. I from what I'm seeing, this is a deer management portion of it, right? I've got to manage the deer that I have, and if I have too much of one, then I've got to figure out a way to get rid of them, and it can't just be me doing the whole work, right? It is limiting the population as you see it growing. And so people don't realize that and a lot of people don't realize the agricultural side of hunting
Hmm.
and the outdoorsmanship, how massive that plays. If you're hunting a farmer's land who puts out clovers one year to build build his soil back up into a rich sense where he can grow the corn, the beans, it takes a year, right? During that year, you're gonna notice a difference in your deer population versus if you have corn or if you have,
Hmm.
soybeans, or if you have if they're planting beets one year. Like, these are things that really matter in a deer hunting population sense, and not even just a deer hunting population, right? The soil changes, and so when the soil changes, if you're a duck hunter, the soil changes, so does the water. And if a duck doesn't notice that the water has what it needs to land and it wants to sit there and actually, land on this piece of, waterfront, it's not going to, man. It's going to find another piece of
Hmm.
land to land on. So agriculturally, it really plays a role. So
Yeah.
I really, really can't agree more. And man, I have, we're coming close to the end of this, and I got a few closing thoughts and a few closing questions that I really, really wanted to ask you. What is something that if right now, God forbid something happens, what is something that you want your legacy to be?
I just want my legacy to be that I've done everything I can to support my family and everything that I've done. And if somebody looks back at all my TikTok videos or hears a story about me, I want it to be in a positive light, whether it's hunting, work, whatever. I want my lasting reflection to be a positive reflection on everything, especially the hunting stuff. Like, you know,
Yeah.
he was always fair. He was always honest about it, and he gave everything a sporting chance, and that's kind of how I've always tried to be, and how I'll continue to be. And if God forbid something happens, that's how I want to be remembered. So he gave everything a sporting chance.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And, on top of that, if someone's listening to this and decides to start hunting because of you, what is something that you want them to know first? Like what's thing that you really wish you could pass to them?
The first thing I want to tell you is if you watch any of my stuff and want to get into hunting, educate yourself first. I mean, I'm not the brightest tool in the shed, and I haven't done it as long as some folks. I got a buddy that comes from the mountains who's good friends with my dad. The gentleman unfortunately lost his leg, but he still hunts. I'll never be as good as he is. He'll walk in the field in a flannel shirt, smoking a Marlboro cigarette, and kill more deer than I ever thought I would able to. So, educate yourself first. Uh, And one other caveat to that is if you do want to get into hunting, whether it's because of me, whether it's because of you, John, whether it's because of whoever, reach out to somebody and establish some relationships so you have a network to help you if you need it. It's a daunting task to get into. It's very rewarding. Don't get me wrong. Don't let me scare you off by saying that, but it is a lot more work than people think. And in order to succeed at this and to really enjoy it, you have to have a tribe around you that is in the same mindset and same framework that you can reach out. And even if nobody in your group knows the answer, have a group that you can confer and have a brainstorm, because somebody can find it or y'all can come up with a solution. So
Yeah.
that is my two big things. If you're going to start hunting, educate yourself and build a network to help support you in your adventure. And if your family doesn't approve or whatever, there are people out here that will be glad to help you. Myself included. Send me a message, text me, call me. If I don't know the answer, I'll find somebody that will. We're here to help you, and we're here to build up the hunting community and in the communities we're building, and we're here to help you. We're not here to shame you. We're not here to judge you on what you did. We're not here to judge you on the bad shots, because unfortunately we all have them. We're here to teach you, help you, and help grow something that we hold very near and dear to our hearts, and share that with you.
Yeah, I can't agree more. You are who you surround yourself with. And, if you're getting into it and you have no idea and no one that you hang out with does, message one of us. Message somebody who you see on TikTok. You'd be surprised at how many people genuinely want to see you succeed, right? If you send me a picture of a satellite image of an area that you're hunting and you say, hey, can we break this down and help me figure out a good place? Absolutely. 100%. I will find not only where you are, but we will break it down and I'll show you the 3D scans and I'll welcome you to my TED Talk, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty, the meats and potatoes, like we'll get into some good stuff, man. And I want to see you succeed. Not only do I want to see you succeed, but it's an imperative that you succeed, right? Because a lot of these hunters who are getting into it, who watch YouTube and watch, I grew up on the Outdoors channel, right? I used to wake up every Saturday morning and watch it with my dad and watch it with my grandpa. And we, I would see these guys smoke these 180, 190-inch deer like it was nothing. It was just a normal another day that ends with Y. And I'm like, dude, I want to do that. And then I never got that opportunity. And I've smoked some good deer. Don't get me wrong. I've had some great kills. You know, I think my best one was like in the 170s, right? Best deer I've ever had, and I'll never do any better than that. And that's okay with me. I'm okay with that. That
Hmm.
was honestly a fluke. Um, I don't even think I deserved that one. But you know, you can't watch these people and think that you're going to have the same level of success. A lot of these people put in hundreds of hours worth of man hours doing the work, doing the research, doing the time, doing the early season, you know, farming that it takes to grow that level of deer. If you see this level of success, please don't think that just because you get a and I hate when people post their TikToks or you know their Instagram stories or their Twitter and they've killed a doe and they're like, well, all I got was a doe. What do you mean, dude? Congratulations, man! You
Yeah.
got one. Hell yeah. You know, like I get more excited than they do most of the time, and I'm more pumped for them than they are, and that's not right, man. If you get a deer you successfully hunted, congratulations. I am so proud of you. And if you're nearby me and you call me and you say, "Hey man, I just got this deer and I need help dragging it." Not only am I going to haul my tail over there, but I'm going to help you clean it. I'm going to
Hmm.
help you drag it, and me and you are going to take the pictures of it, and we're going to make sure that you look like a friggin' superstar. You know, like those are the things that matters, and you'll find those people in this community. You know, but one of the things, you know, another question I have is, you know, and I think a lot of people don't realize these days that happen is what drives you to keep going through those early morning sits, through those misses, through those bad shots, through those, you know, all day sits that are just mentally draining. You know, what keeps you going and the setbacks.
Uh, the main thing is, I've always grown up and driven myself in the mentality of mistakes are going to happen. The only thing you can do is fix it and move on. So look at everything like a problem. Okay, I'm getting tired of standing in the saddle. My hips are starting to hurt. Okay, change it. I'm tired of hunting this spot. I'm not seeing anything. Okay, change it. Oh, I made a bad shot on that doe. Okay, change it. Go practice. You have to look at it as a problem solution type deal, and that's how I work through it. I've always been that way. Let me figure out the problem, and then let me solve it or fix it. So that's kind of what gets me through those long days or those screw ups or those hiccups. Is hey, this is what's happened. This is the problem, or this is whatever. Let's figure out a solution. And believe it or not, there's always a solution. You might have to dig for it, but it's there. So and that's one thing I'll tell new hunters too is don't get frustrated over screw ups because they will happen. They happen to the best of us. They happen to, believe it or not, the guys you see on TV shooting those 190, 200-inch deer all the time. I guarantee you, there's probably 20 hunts off camera that they've screwed up somehow.
Yeah.
It'll happen. You just have to work through it and know that's part of the game. So, that's kind of how I work through it. And I also, talking about the all day sits and stuff, I've come to realize the all day sit is not for me. So, I have days where I'll do a morning hunt and an evening hunt. I'll sit from, you know, legal to like 10 o'clock. I'll break and then I'll go back in from 2 or 3 to dark. I've had some days that I've done 3 hunts in a day. I get up, first light to like 8 o'clock. Then I'll go from 10 to noon or 1. And then I'll go back from like 2:33 to dark. It's just one of those things that if stuff's not working for you, again, identify the problem and work it and make it work for you.
Yeah, I can't agree more. And man, I think I think there's really only about one more question that I have that I think the general public would like answered is, you know, what does West Farm Whitetail stand for at its core, and where do you see it going from here?
Uh, well, West Farms Whitetails is just what West Farms has always been, whether it's been the whitetail side or the farming side. It's just honest folks just doing what we do. And that's kind of what we'll always be, regardless of if I lost every follower I had on TikTok tonight, unfortunately, and I hit one follower tomorrow, the videos will be the same. We're just here having fun and kind of documenting what we do on a daily basis. If that grows, that's great. The good Lord's blessed me. If it stays the same, the good Lord's blessed me all the same. I got up and got another day to enjoy what I'm doing. So that's who we are at the core. It's just some good old boys having fun, and that's who we'll always be. And
Yeah.
I do want to grow the channel, but again, it is what it is. And
Yeah, no, I can't agree more. I think if you keep your morals correct and your moral compass isn't something that you're willing to waver on, that is what makes a successful channel. Not the amount of followers that you have, but the ability that you have to not change under pressure or mitigation or anything along those lines. I think that's what makes a successful channel. Man, again, I cannot appreciate or tell you how much I appreciate you coming on and taking the time to talk to me. And the biggest thing, guys, is if those who are listening, man, go give him a follow, man. I know he's got a giveaway, and I'm going to give him some time to talk about it. He's got a giveaway as soon as he gets 1,000. I would love for him to see it, 10,000. I'd love to see him to see 100,000. So Casey, what you got for us, man?
so basically, what's going to happen is once I hit 1,000 followers on TikTok, I'm really close. It's only like 20 or 30 still needed. So y'all hurry up and get in it because it ain't gonna be long. Hopefully, once that number is hit and I get time to set a date where I can and do the giveaway. I'm gonna give away a few things from some small companies that I support. I got a full video going over showing everything, but just some highlights. Is we're planning on doing two separate things, right? So I know not everybody that follows me is a hunter, but I hope everybody's an outdoorsman. So we're gonna do a soft plastic bait giveaway for the more of the fishermen. It's got baits from Sick and Twisted Baits on TikTok and Dixon's Baits on TikTok. Again, great guys, small companies. They've been awesome to work with. And then on the hunting side, it's a little bit bigger prize package. It's more of the main package, I guess you would say, that we're going to give away. It's got a set of game cuff deer drags. It's got a bottle of Stalker cover scent in their bottomland scent. I really enjoyed their pine, but I wanted to give something away a little bit different, so we're going with the bottomland. And then it's also got Title X archery. It has their bow grip tape or their Grip X grip tape, and that's been a really cool product that I've been able to use this year, and that's kind of what we're giving away. So again, if y'all want to see what this stuff looks like or go a little bit more in depth, go to my TikTok channel. I got a whole video explaining and showing off what's given away, and I appreciate you having me, John. I've enjoyed sitting talking, and anytime you want to chit chat, you just give me a call. I'll be glad to come back.
Yeah, man, absolutely. And guys, if you're listening, man, these are the people that you need to surround yourself around with. If social media is something that you do on a daily basis, surround yourself with the people who are worth listening to. Don't listen to the garbage that is out there. Listen to the guys that are out there doing the hard work. And if you're really getting into it, man, you message either one of us, man, and not only will we drop everything what we're doing, if we don't have the answer, we're gonna find somebody that does. So you know, uh, uh, Casey, man, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming on, and I can't wait to see where you go from here, and how much you grow. And I'm excited to see it, and I know those who are listening who follow you, we're excited to watch you, continue to grow West Farm Whitetails and get better and the just the way that you guys are. And I know you got a big hunt coming up in Ohio, man, and I can't wait to see the photos of that and the film that comes from that. And I expect man, those deer over there, man, are mooses that compared to excuse me, to most places, man. And I'm excited to see your success level when you come in there. And you're gonna see, guys, this is our way of life. This isn't just something that we do for fun. This is something that we care about and we want to see succeed. So I thank you guys for listening, and West Farm Whitetails, man, go give him a follow and see where he grows from here. But man, anytime you feel like you want to talk, man, we're here, and I appreciate it again.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And again, guys, anytime you have questions, if you need anything, I'm just a message away on TikTok. And, in severe cases, I have given out my phone number just to help folks out. So, just get a hold of me if you got questions and we'll try and make it happen. And my North Carolina folks, I'm here. I'm still kicking. So, make sure we're putting the best foot forward for North Carolina.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Again, I appreciate it, brother, and take care, and we'll talk to you soon.
Same to you, bud.